You are listening to Balloon Killers. I'm your host, Chrissy Riley, and each episode I'll be talking to someone from the world of cowboy mounted shooting, which is one of the most exciting and fastest growing equestrian sports. Hold on to your hats because it's going to get western. Hey everyone, I hope that you are all having a good summer of mounted shooting. From my social media feed, it certainly looks like a lot of you are very busy with back-to-back weekend shoots. There's not really been too much happening around here. I'm getting ready for a few back-to-back weekends of local shoots and then, of course, getting ready for Vegas. I've been prepping all of my sparkliest stuff because no matter how good or bad you are at something, if you feel like you look good doing it, I always think you carry yourself a little bit differently. I'm looking forward to a vacation in Vegas, quite honestly. Work has been brutal. I've been working way too many hours, which doesn't leave me too much time for the things that I love, like mounted shooting, of course. This episode, I have not one, not two, but three guests for you. Dr. Matthew Taranto is a retired US Air Force aerospace physiologist who spent over 20 years flying, teaching, and conducting research in many high-performance flight environments. His experience with the anatomy of hearing, noise exposure, and human performance under pressure inspired the development of EquuSound, the first custom-fit earplugs designed specifically for horses. He now applies the same precision and care offered to fighter pilots to the horse. Cami Taranto, his wife, is a lifelong horsewoman, a mom to two, and a fairly new mounted shooter. Prior to starting her mounted shooting career, she competed in competitive trail riding and ranch versatility. She's only competed 4 times with Traeger, who is credited as the horse who helped shape EquuSound. In their short competitive career since March of this year, they have won the Flagstaff Pro Rodeo Shootout Division A Wicked Fast for Stage 1 and their first class win at the Let's Just Shoot 3. As an experienced horsewoman, she plays a key role in testing, shaping, and refining EquuSound's designs with a sharp eye for comfort, behavior, and fit. And last but not least, Ali Cooper is a ladies level 4 mounted shooter who began competing in 2019. She's also an 8th grade math teacher, a wife, and a mom of 2 girls. This season, Ali has racked up a string of wins, including level 3 at the Cactus Classic, overall ladies limited shotgun champion at Southwest Regionals, level 3 winner and eliminator champion at the New River Yacht Club shoot on Mother's Day, reserve overall at Red Rock in New Mexico, and level 4 winner at the Sweetwater Classic in Wyoming. Ali serves as a traveling representative for EquuSound, fitting horses for earplugs and supporting riders with product education and sales at competitions. So I'm sitting down with Matt, Cami, and Ali. Matt and Cami have started the company EquuSound, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen the EquuSound earplugs all over Facebook. I know that when I first saw them, I was super excited. So thanks for taking the time to sit down with me, everybody.
You bet.
You're welcome.
And Ali's here because Ali fits the EquuSound earplugs. You might have seen her at a shoot locally or one of the bigger national shoots, and she's a representative for EquuSound, so she's got a really unique experience with them as well. But I'm going to start with a question for Matt and Cami, and that is, what inspired you to create EquuSound?
So I had been in mounted shooting for maybe like 6 months, and my horse passed away. I got a new little horse when he was 2 and broke him. And then when he was 3, I tried to take him into gunfire, and he did okay for the first 3 or 4 times I shot off of him. And then he started having some really big reactions. As soon as he would see my gun, or if he saw the balloon, he would just stop and start backing up. And then Matt asked me what I was putting in his ears. And so I showed him. I just had the little foam carrots, but I had actually cut off the tip of it so that it would fit in his ear better. And then I'll let Matt explain the rest.
Yeah, so I had asked Cami what she's been using for Traeger, and she had purchased just about everything that's available on the market today to try with no success. So the product EquuSound really didn't come out of just kind of an interesting idea. It kind of came out of necessity because our horse just wasn't acclimating to the sport at all. So my background was active duty Air Force for over 20 years, and I served as an aerospace physiologist for most of that time. And one of the things I did when I flew was became a certified impressionist for humans to make custom earplugs for aircrew. And I personally flew with them for my entire career and absolutely loved them. And so kind of the spark happened in the living room when we were talking about these products and what to do and Cammy's frustration. And I thought, I wonder if we could make him a custom earpiece. My concern is he's not getting adequate hearing protection with a 45 caliber revolver. And so we kind of sat down and brainstormed on the back of a napkin and tried to figure out a way that we could get an impression off of a horse. And that created a lot of challenges because they're not as compliant as my human patients are. And so a lot of trial and error, but we came up with a safe, quick, and effective way to cast an impression equine ear in the right way. And so we tried it on Traeger several times, and we saw dramatic improvement with his behavior in reaction to the sport and just seeing and being around the activities in a very short period of time. And so much so that we embedded microphones into some of the other products and our product and took some initial readings and noted his behavioral changes in a very short period of time and thought, I think we're onto something. And so that's where the ideas began and spent about a year really working through developmental challenges to get a product that would make sense and deal with some of the challenges like retention and comfort and protection that we're all looking for in our horses.
And you're still shooting now, Cammy?
Yes.
And you're still on the horse that started this whole business?
Yes, he actually got his first win like 2 weeks ago using our earplugs.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And have you heard of other horses that have struggled to get into mounted shooting because they are afraid of the sound and these earplugs are working in the same way for them?
I'd love to hop in on this one real quick. So I went to the Sweetwater Classic in Wyoming recently, and there was a level 4 shooter there. She had a young horse that was just getting started out, and she tried out the earplugs one of the first days and ended up buying a set and like keeping the set she used just because she was really having a hard time with her young horse with reacting and tossing its head. And basically the results were immediate for her.
What's been interesting, Chrissy, is we've had clients that are brand new to the sport with new horses, intermediate riders with horses that have been struggling in certain environments or challenges with the noise, and senior folks from all levels, 1 to 6 in the community, are riding in the product today. And we have seen dramatic improvements. The feedback has been overwhelmingly positive with the behavior changes. We've had some really interesting comments come in from clients, the things that they no longer have to do to their horses because they're so much more calm and collected and relaxed because they're getting the protection. And really, one of the shining lights in our product that we really strove for was the comfort factor. So insertion and extraction of the earpiece, knowing when it's seated properly and these types of things really seem to be helping the rider be more comfortable because the horse is tolerating the product a lot better.
Yeah, I certainly saw that myself with a couple of my friends' horses at the Sweetwater shoot, which inspired me to buy 2 pairs. Cammy and Ali, you're both shooters actively and competing regularly in the sport. What is it that you love about the sport?
I can go first. I think I have basically a pretty generic answer, and it's probably a really common answer based on what I've heard from other shooters in the podcast. I think it's the community. It's an incredible community. But aside from that, like I love the horsemanship and the strategy, the course management, all those things just make it really exciting.
I have to agree with Ali. For me, it's the challenge of the sport. It really takes horsemanship because you are literally riding with one hand and trying to shoot balloons, and your brain is concentrating on so many things at one time. It just takes a good rider to be able to go out there and do the courses. And like Ali said, you really have to strategize and figure out your lines and how your horse best turns. And, there's so much that goes into it. That's what I really love about it.
What are both of your backgrounds with horses and or guns prior to mounted shooting?
So for me, I was just kind of a casual gun owner before, but I saw a beginner mounted shooting clinic with Kendall Lonzane in 2019 on Facebook. It was like a Facebook event, and I was like, what in the world is this? So that was my introduction to at least mounted shooting, that part of it. And I got my first horse when I was 16, and I did barrel racing for a long time.
So I got my first horse when I was 9, and I've done a little bit of everything. I did some barrel racing as a kid, gymkhanas, and then my last horse before getting into mounted shooting, I did competitive trail, which I really enjoyed as well. And then, I got into the sport. It was something that I've always wanted to get into. Matt and I would frequently talk about like mounted shooting. That would be so fun. And then Kristen Dalton actually was a friend of Matt's, and she gave me my first lesson, and I was hooked after that.
What is your favorite pattern and why? And what, if any, tips do you have for running it?
I think my answer is going to be possibly uncommon. When I was kind of like scrolling through the patterns, as soon as I came across number 23, I stopped. That's the one. So that's the one where there's a straight gate on the left side towards the top, and then there's 3 right above it, really close together. And I think for some people, it's a little bit intimidating, but it's usually a showcase pattern, an eliminator pattern, or it's like the last stage for the day. It usually comes with high stakes. And so straight gates used to be kind of my downfall until I practiced it enough until I was good at it. And so now I feel really confident about it, and I don't let my nerves get the best of me. I've been pretty successful with it lately. I won an eliminator this year on it. I've placed in an eliminator this year on it. And so I think it's one of those things, once you have confidence comes from mastery of a skill, and then you just don't overthink it when it's a high stakes pattern like a showcase. So for me, I think it's just one that I feel successful with and that I do well with.
That's one of those rapid fire ones, right? It's a super fast pattern because you go through the gate and then you've got the 3 rapid fire and then the rundown.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a fast pattern. Those 3 up at the top, that really gets to some people. And so I guess my advice for that one, I always shoot the cross shot for that gate first. And then I shoot the strong shot a little bit behind me. And then I just pick up the other 3 as they come up. And so I think the only advice for that one, there's a lot of different strategies for that pattern. But for me, I take the gate straight on, and you got to hurry up to that gate because it's way up there. I see a lot of people dawdling to that first gate because they're worried about going too fast through it. I hurry up there and then just practice those straight gates till you love them.
I'm working on trying to love the rapid fire 3. So I am getting there. I'm actually really working on dry firing fast. So hopefully I'm going to get to the point where I do love those patterns. How about you, Cami?
For me, it's pattern 71. So it's 4 gates and 2 barrels. And I love the course because, one, it takes a lot of horsemanship. You got to work those gates, and you got to get your horse pointed in the right lines and get some smooth turns going. Then it makes you work on your gates. And I also like the flowiness of the pattern. So once you get into it, you can just kind of push your horse, and if you flow with it, it just goes really nicely.
So what about the win that you're most proud of? I think, Cami, you mentioned a recent win.
For me, first of all, I was a ladies 1 for 4 years before I finally moved up for the first time. And when I finally moved up, it was a small shoot in New Mexico in 2023. And I had never traveled out of state to compete before this. And it was years of me saying, the woulda, coulda, shouldas. I needed one more win for a very long time. The other thing, my husband doesn't normally come with me to competitions, even in Arizona, but he came with me to this one. And I kept it clean. I won my class for the first time in a couple years. And I was so excited and emotional. I wanted it so bad. And I finally did it. And so my husband did my move up dance with me. And the whole thing was super special. And after that, I've gone back to New Mexico for years. And for a little while, I had more qualified wins in New Mexico than Arizona until this year. And I mean, I had quite a few. I love the New Mexico Club. It's a great group of shooters. They always host really great shoots. So there's my shameless plug for New Mexico.
And you've had a lot of big wins recently, right? So tell us about that.
So I've had 3 really exciting wins this season. First one was at the Cactus Classic in February. And then after that, Dan Bird always hosts a shoot every year. He's always has a ton of prizes and money. I won my class in that. And that was actually really exciting. That was my move up to a ladies four. And then just most recently, I went to Wyoming and I won one of the days there. And that was my first qualified win as a ladies four. It was really exciting.
Congratulations. How about you, Cami?
So like I said, Traeger and I, we've only done 4 competitions and we just got our first ladies one win 2 weeks ago. And that was a good win, but I think the one that I'm most proud of was our Wicked Fast run in Flagstaff. And the reason why is so the timer didn't work. I ran my first run and the timer didn't work. It wasn't
Oh,
my best
no.
run. And it was a rerun, and you know how those can go. So I was like, man, this is going to be, I'm just going to make the best of it. And I just let him go, and we flowed so nicely together. We were clean, and we got the Wicked Fast for the A division. So that's probably the one I'm the most proud of.
Ali, what issues have you seen or experienced with horses reacting to gunfire?
Just personally, my horse Cinco, I've been shooting on her for 3 years. And she was pretty reactive to gunfire for quite a while. She still is. If she's not wearing earplugs and I try to go near where people are practicing or where, at a competition where they're shooting, she won't even go near them. So in the beginning, I just wasn't able to give her enough time, dedicate enough time to help her get over it. So I ended up sending her to Dan Bird for 60 days. And when she came back, she was much better. But she was still reactive for like 6 months. I basically had to sneak the first shot every time, and then she would be okay. She was never like dangerous. She would just toss her head or resist going into a pattern. And I think that's kind of a common thing for horses that are going to be reactive, just doing those kind of behaviors.
Mm-hmm. And so, what drew you to EquuSound initially as a rider?
I first met Matt and Cami at the Southwest Spectacular in Queen Creek. So that's the Southwest Regionals, then it was the Cactus Classic, then it's Winter Nationals. So it's 9 days of competition. And I walked past their booth for a couple days before finally stopping and chatting. First thing I noticed, amazing customer service. They took the time to explain like the anatomy of my horse's ears and why the proper fit was essential. I told them about how my horse Cinco hates earplugs, but she has to wear them or else she'll toss her head. And I like to say this, your horse is going to tell you the truth every single time. And so when Cami sized Cinco for the EquuSound earplugs and put them in, Cinco didn't flinch. When they were removed or put in, she was calm and relaxed and comfortable. And I feel like Cinco had been telling me that she hated those other earplugs for so long. And I think she just kind of finally felt understood. And you're not supposed to change anything mid-competition. You're not supposed to change any of your routines. I switched over mid-competition and I have not looked back.
The proof was in the pudding.
Exactly.
And Matt, why is hearing protection such an important issue in mounted shooting?
Well, I think we can all recognize as outdoors people or horsemen how loud, spectators, how loud the gunfire is. And we know that the horse has a wider frequency range in terms of hearing. We know they have a larger ear than we do, and we know we're holding the revolver relatively close to their ears during these competitions. Our independent testing and testing in the literature suggests that the decibel level for a 45 caliber revolver shooting a blank full load is somewhere between 115 and 140 decibels, depending on how close it is to the ear. And just for a frame of reference, anything over 85 decibels is considered damaging exposure for periods of time for the human ear. And the mammalian ear with the horse, anatomically, in terms of the way they hear and the way we hear, is very similar. And so we know as humans, we suffer from conditions like tinnitus, hearing loss, the tinnitus, the ringing in the ears, these types of conditions due to overexposure of noise. And so we knew with our horse that it was really important to us, to try to protect his hearing during his life if we're going to expose him to this very loud sport, and that it's going to have an impact on his ability to concentrate. Imagine being your horse, right, and somebody shooting a weapon right over the top of your head while they're, encouraging you to run faster, that kind of thing. So it's a really dynamic and exciting sport. I flew jet aircraft for 20 years, so I've lived and worked in a very high noise environment and know firsthand, like many of you listening, how important it is to have hearing protection. We've seen riders go out and forget to put their earplugs in, and they come out of the arena and their ears are ringing and they're rubbing their ears just like our horses are trying to do for us. So I think it's important to just kind of pause for a little bit and just think about the animal's hearing and to recognize that hearing loss is irreversible. So it's irreversible in the human ear, it's irreversible in the equine ear. And so once those neurological hair cells in the cochlea are damaged, they don't grow back. And so we want to have our horses maintain one of their primary sensors as a prey animal that they've been blessed with. I think we kind of owe it to our partners here to make sure that they're protected just like we would protect ourselves.
How are the EquuSound earplugs different from anything else on the market?
Well, there's a couple of primary differences. One of the primary differences is that it respects and accommodates the anatomical structure of the equine ear. And so it's actually, your earplugs are made from the horse's ear. And so our signature series is an actual impression of your horse's ear. And then we cast that and foam it for you and customize it. And so the major functional differences are it actually is designed to fit inside your horse's ear. And that does a really important thing. It creates a really nice barrier for sound protection, one. Two, it reduces or eliminates, in many cases, internal pressure that the other products on the market are dependent on. And they're dependent on that for retention reasons. So the cat toys or foam golf balls or yarn balls, some of the other products with exception of the bonnets, for example, are pushed in there, compressed, and then they expand out for retention and to create some sort of barrier. What we may not realize, and we didn't realize, is how much pressure that's putting on your horse's ear. And just like if you were to fall asleep at night, wake up in the middle of the night with your ear folded over, how sore your ear would be when you wake up. Because the horse's ear is motile and they can rotate it almost 180 degrees, the muscles, nerves, and cartilage in there are extremely sensitive. And so when we put internal pressure in there, that's a lot of the reasons why it's rare to see a horse owner put these types of products in their horse's ears without them having a reaction. The other thing is that we do an external retention. So we hug the outside of the ear to keep the earpiece in place, and then have a retention strap that attaches to your halter or bridle. So in the event that they come out or you want to remove them, they won't fall in the dirt. So the big issues and the big differences are no internal pressure and a custom fit, which creates better hearing protection because we have a full barrier that we're familiar with. And probably the last one is seating. So when you put your foam ball in there, my question to you would be, how do you know when it's properly seated, if at all, right? And same with the foam cat toys or the other products that people are using, yarn balls. Where do you place them? And when you look around at other riders, they're seated in different locations. With the EquuSound earpiece, because we're using the anatomy of the ear, when you seat it, there's no guesswork involved. You seat the earplug, it clicks into place. You know it's in the right place, and you can attach it and go about whatever it is that you're going to go do. And they're also quite easy to remove because you just simply stick your finger in there, roll the plug towards you, and the earpiece comes out. And perhaps one of the small things is you really can't forget that they're in there. A lot of clients tell us, I fed a horse last weekend, and the gal told me she wasn't confident that there wasn't a foam ball shoved down in her horse's ear before I took an impression.
Because she couldn't get it back out.
Right, because the horse was so sensitive to her removing them. She didn't want to get hit in the head. So our earpiece is very visible, and so it'd be very, very difficult to forget that it's in your horse's ears. So those are some of the main differences. There's a lot of subtle ones, but I think that covers the primary differences in the products that you see out there today.
And to piggyback off of Matt for the seating, so in the next Rundown magazine, we have an article coming out that showcases the testing that we did. And what is interesting is Matt and I both took the different earplugs, put them in the cadaver ear that we had built, and the testing was different for each of us. So it depended on how far we put it down. Matt was more aggressive in his technique and pushed it down further, so he had more coverage than I did. on most of the earplugs, but what was interesting is when we did the EquuSound earplug, we both got the same reading. So there was no difference between us when we used that earplug, but there was difference in every other earplug that we put in.
That's fascinating. And Matt, you had talked about this at the beginning. You'd mentioned that you had tested lots of different earplugs, and you'd mentioned that you found them to be ineffective compared to the EquuSound. Could you talk a little bit more about exactly what you were seeing with the decibels, and specifically in relation to damage? You mentioned horses' ears can be damaged from gunfire.
Yeah, we'll start with the damaged piece. So the equine ear is very similar to yours in terms of how they detect sound. We have hair cells in what's called the cochlea in the inner ear that move, kind of like grass blowing in the wind, if you will. When those hair cells deflect, it sends a neurological signal to the brain that interprets that sound or noise. And so when they're exposed to noise, then we see damage take place, just like we will in the human ear, because those neurological hair cells will either crack or break. And that's what sends erroneous sounds to the brain, what we call tinnitus or tinnitus, depending on your pronunciation. And that's a lifelong condition. And so if we're gentle with our hearing, it's kind of like walking across your freshly cut yard. The grass will kind of stand back up, and the next day the footprints are kind of gone. But if you send a herd of horses across it, that path will be there forever. Right. And so we have to be really careful because they're non-regenerative. Your hearing cells in your ears that you're listening to me talk with right now are all you'll ever have. They won't grow back. And so we can only do one thing, and that's protect what you got. That really kind of focuses in on, the importance of hearing protection. In terms of testing that you asked about, really what I did, one of the first things I did, Chrissy, was I built what Cami mentioned as a cadaver ear. We didn't have a real one, so we had to make a synthetic representation of an ear. So we used our horse to do that. And we started putting the traditional products on the market in there. And what I was doing is I was taking a really bright light and shining it from behind to see what kind of coverage we were getting. And it was difficult for us to find full coverage in the products that we had purchased and tried in our synthetic ear in the garage. And so that told me we weren't getting decent coverage. And to get the coverage, this was also interesting, to block the light out, I had to shove them in so far that the actual synthetic ear that I was using, that mimicked cartilage, I could visibly see it expanding because of the internal pressure. And so that told me, those are some of the challenges we're dealing with in the equine hearing protection space is internal pressure and then a proper barrier. And because their ears, the space we're filling is known as the concha, which is Latin for shell. It's a very unique shape, and because of the way that horse's ear can move and flex, we need to respect that. You've seen your horses pin their ears back, and they can almost pinch them kind of like a whale blowhole, right? And kind of they have a little more control of that ear than you may realize. And so that creates a unique design space, engineering space for us to try to accommodate, to create a much improved barrier for sound protection, and then retain it without using internal pressure. Some of the other testing that we did initially was embedding a microphone into all of the products and then putting them in Traeger's ear and then holding the 45 caliber revolver at a relevant distance, in most cases further than you would when you're riding. And his reaction was so bad, we actually had to stop testing because we felt like we were not helping him out in any kind of way because it wasn't giving him the protection he needed. We would test EquuSound last. So we'd go through all the 5 or 6 products that we had access to at the time and then put EquuSound in. And his behavior started to change. Now, they still feel the gunshots. They still hear the gunshots, much like you would if you had earplugs in. And you were shooting your gun, right? You're still hearing it and seeing it and feeling it, and you smell the smoke and all that kind of stuff is still happening. The hearing protection is just taking the edge off. As Cami mentioned, we wrote a second article. If you didn't read our first one in the last edition of the Rundown, I encourage you to take a look at that. And it tells a little bit more of the backstory and some of the things we're talking about now. The new one that's coming out in the next edition really focuses on some controlled testing that we did in our testing space. And so we did a pressure test. So we compressed all of the internal products to a representative size of the concha that I mentioned earlier. And you'll see in there where we noted that the pounds and I convert those to PSI so that we can kind of understand how much pressure we're putting in our horse's ears. We did light testing where we shine lights again through the back of the cadaver ear to see if we have pass through. And then we also did decibel testing. We created a mini portable anechoic chamber where we put a precision decimeter, a decibel meter in the chamber itself with a synthetic ear canal. And then we had a calibrated and consistent noise that we're able to test the product with. And then we'd try all of them the same at the exact same distances so that we could get some decibel protection measures from the products that we had here to test. And all that information and data is provided in the article that's coming out in the rundown.
I will look forward to that. I love nerding out on this stuff.
We do too. I hope you enjoy it.
I can hear that you do.
Yeah.
And just your testing process.
I'm a faculty member and instructor at the United States Air Force Test Pilot School. And so testing is something I'm fairly passionate about and spend a lot of time doing in some really interesting spaces for our aviators. And so to take that type of process and these types of concepts and systems that help us to do our jobs better to the horse has been a really interesting and fun adventure over the last year.
Sure. And you mentioned that there's a signature earplug, and I think that there's a standard collection as well. Could you talk about the difference between the two?
So the difference is our signature is actually molded to your horse's ear. So if you see us at an event or a show, we have impression material. It's a two-part material that we mix together, and then we put it in your horse's ear and make a mold of your horse so it fits completely to their ear. The other that we have is what we call our standard. Here at EquuSound, we have close to 100 different sizes. And so we can measure the width and the depth of your horse's ear and try on the sizes that closely resemble your horse's ear and find a fit that way as well.
On that note, how can people get their horses measured and how can they try them out? I've heard Ali talk about people trying them out, and also how can they purchase them?
So of course, for the signature, you have to meet with Matt and I at one of our shows or events, and we can mold your horse's ear. And then for the standard, watch our website at EquuSound.com, and we keep our upcoming events up to date. And you can meet with Ali at one of her shows or events, or Matt and I at a show and event, and we will size your horse for you. And we typically have different earplug sizes on hand that we can try in your horse's ear at that time, and typically have some that are for purchase as well. Or for those that are on the East Coast, since we're mostly on the West Coast here, then you can order a sizing gauge off of our website. We'll send that to you. You can do your width and depth measurements. And then we have what we call our sizing keys. So once we get your width and depth measurements, we will find the keys that they look just like a horse's ear. And then you will size and fit your horse with those keys to find the best fit.
With the signature process, what does that require for the horse? And are certain horses not going to accept that process, or do you find that all horses are okay with it?
So the signature process, when we take a custom impression of your horse, it typically takes about 15 to 20 minutes, depending mostly on the temperature that we're working in, one, and two, really how compliant the horse is to the process. To date, knock on wood, we've had many clients be very apprehensive about their horse being able or willing to do the custom impression, but so far we've been able to get an accurate impression on every client that's requested one. And so we have actually found during the impression procedure that many horses relax quite nicely. They find it not to be difficult or painful at all. It's a 2-part silicone mixture, so it's quite soft, and then it sets up in about 4 to 7 minutes, and then we extract it slowly, and then it comes with us back to the shop where we handcraft your custom earpiece, and then you can pick out your colors, and if you want to put your brand on the front of it or an initial or whatever it is, we're happy to customize. And I think that's another piece we failed to mention earlier is that's different about our product is you can customize it. So you get to pick your colors. You can pick your logo on the front of it. Yeah, and that kind of adds a personal touch to the product as well. Again, it takes about 15 minutes to do, and the horses so far, once they realize it's not painful, the challenging horses that I've worked with are those that are really shy with their ears because of either the pain, tinnitus, or difficulty, or they think I'm going to shove something in there that's very uncomfortable. And once they realize that's not the case, typically the procedure goes quite nicely.
So to quote one of our clients, it's one of my favorite quotes. The horse they thought was going to be apprehensive when we went to go do the mold, and because she was finicky with her ears, and we put the mold in and she closed her eyes, put her head down, and our client literally said, "She is about to start purring." And so they really don't mind it. It's actually, like Matt said, once it gets in there, and it's kind of cool and relaxing for them.
And I can attest to the customization piece because I have pink ones and blue ones, and I have I have the initial of the horse's name on each, just so that I know which one's which as well, in sparkly stones. So those of you who love some bling, you can get some bling on these earplugs.
Absolutely.
Ali, what's your approach when you're introducing someone new to EquuSound at a show?
So I think first off, kind of going back to what you said previously, I think we've all kind of like nerded out and maybe gone down a rabbit hole on educating ourselves and getting quality tack and equipment and supplements. And I think a lot of riders work hard and we do our homework to give our horses the best of all that stuff. I think this is so new that it's important to kind of explain that earplugs are no different. And I like to say that our horses are half the team. And honestly, if I can reduce their discomfort or eliminate the distraction and help our horses perform better, I think every shooter would choose that every time. We would never put an ill-fitting bit on our horse and keep using it, even though we know it's not working like it should. And so just because our horses tolerate something doesn't mean it's the best solution. And so something that I have told some people that have told me, my horse hates earplugs. Your horse probably doesn't hate earplugs. They hate those other ones, and my own horse included. So sometimes I'll just kind of observe horses in the arena. If I see some head tossing or flinching with the shots, that's a kind of a strong sign to me that they're struggling with the noise or the discomfort. And that common, like, just tough it out and they'll eventually get over it. That kind of mindset doesn't address the root of the issue, in my opinion. And so I will try to approach the rider and explain that, we could have a more effective solution and that EquuSound can provide sometimes immediate, visible results. There was somebody in Wyoming that said that it was basically night and day. And so basically, I just kind of let the product speak for itself. There's no gimmick. It's just honest feedback from the horses. Your horses are going to tell you the truth every time. A lot of riders, like especially in Wyoming, they reached out after watching me fit other horses, and they were just blown away by such a thing existed. So I think right now, it's just kind of showing people that this exists. And a lot of people are excited to have something better. I talk to so many riders. They're like, my horse hates earplugs.
And I can relate to that in terms of just earplugs for my own self. I've been through so many different kinds of earplugs because certain earplugs hurt or they don't work, they fall out. And so I'm sure it's got to be the same with horses.
Yeah. And even in Queen Creek, when I first met Matt and Cammie, they had a horse ear that you could try to put a bunch of different earplugs in. And they were like, well, which of these do you use? And I used the foam cone ones. And they're like, try to put it in there. They had the flashlight. And I put it in there. And kind of like Matt, I was a little aggressive with how I put the earplugs in the ear. And so I had pretty good protection. The light didn't shine through very much. But the problem with that method, with how aggressive I was, I was protecting my horse's hearing a little better, but it hurt her ears so much. She would almost knock you over when you try to take them out, just because that pressure had built up and it was so painful to her. Even if people tried to like come up and pet her, if she thought you were going to touch her earplugs or the string, she'd like knock people over. I had to warn people.
So to close, Cami, where can people follow your journey and stay in the loop? I know you've had a lot of interest. I'm seeing Facebook lighting up about these earplugs, but how can people stay in touch with what you're doing?
Of course, you can, follow us on Facebook. And truth be told, we have not been good about keeping that up. So we are going to try and work on that. We are not social media people, so it's not our strong suit. But please follow us there, and also our website. You can get on there or email us at info@EquuSound.com. And we're always happy to, FaceTime or video call with our clients to help you guys get set up. I know it's a new product, so a lot of people are just a little weary about, well, do I have it in right? Is it set up right? Why isn't it staying in? So please don't hesitate to reach out, because we really do just want to help each and every rider and each and every horse. That's our passion for our product. And so we're here to help you.
And for me, I kind of am pretty active on social media. I try to kind of announce on the soapbox or on my own Facebook where I'll be and that I'll be available to help people. So I post quite a bit about where I'm going.
How about doing all that? And that really helps us a lot. She brings a lot of strength in those areas for our team, which is fabulous. We're super busy. We have been overwhelmed, and we are unbelievably humbled by the comments and videos and things that people are sending us weekly. We are super busy trying to make sure that every piece gets the attention that it deserves before it heads out our door to yours, and that we are following up with you and making sure that you're satisfied with your product and you understand how to use it. A couple quick things: if you order from us, you'll get a QR code with a red stop sign in your box, nudging you to watch the how-to video that we put together, just to make sure that you're inserting them properly. One of the pro tips I would offer to anybody interested or using our product is just to make sure that you're doing a nice slow acclimation for your horse. It's some horses adapt immediately, as we've talked about. There are some that need more acclimation. And so just knowing and paying attention to where your horse is in terms of its acceptance to a new piece of tack. I encourage you to test it in a nice, quiet, controlled setting in small doses, and make sure that your retention strap is set properly in terms of tension, and then the string with the slider locks on it is proper, and so that we've got a good fit. And your horse will talk to you about that as you move along. But the big idea is what we typically would not recommend is to leave them in the box and show up at a shoot and shove them in there and try to go shoot, because it's a new product for your horse. And just like anything else, I think it's wise to take your time and introduce it in the barn or outside somewhere, and just do small doses, because we use an external strap that is a new sensation for the horse, right? They may feel like there's a lizard on their ear, if you will, something that they're not used to feeling on the outside. And so just letting them get used to that. Some horses, again, no issue. They acclimate immediately, and some take a little bit more time. So just deal with your horse as good as you can in terms of paying attention to their reaction to the new product. And I think you'll find in time that it's something that's really going to help you and your horse move forward.
Another pro tip that I want to throw out there too is, I think with the old earplugs, people fought their horses so much getting them in and out that it was just leave them in once you get them in. And I just really recommend that you take them out and give them a break when you can. Even when I'm practicing with Traeger, they're out when I go set up my stage, and then I put them in, get my guns loaded, get on, go ride my stage. And then once I'm done with that, whatever practice I'm doing with him, I take him out and give him a break while I either set up a new stage or whatever it is that I'm doing. So he was really only wearing them for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes at a time, and then he gets a break. And like Matt was saying, because it's a full contact, his little ear gets itchy. So, reach in there and give him a little scratch. Like, he loves it when I scratch the inside of his ear after he's had his earplugs in for a little bit. And then he's ready for the next time that they're going in. So just give him a break. And like you said, acclimate him when you can.
Well, thank you for all that you are doing for our horses in the sport of mounted shooting. And thank you so much for the time you've taken to speak with me about your product today.
Oh, we're excited to be here, and we're just excited to be a part of this. And the warm welcome from the Cowboy Mounted Shooting Association has just been very touching to us and overwhelming, and motivates us every day to get up and continue to develop the best earplug in the world for your horse, and get them out there across the United States. And so, take a look at our website. We're continuing to update that and improve it, and we're always looking for feedback and let us know if you have any questions. We're trying to be accessible to all our clients. So look forward to meeting you if we haven't yet. Come see us. We'll be in Vegas. Be set up there. Allie will be there with us as well. So we look forward to meeting some new folks.
If you want to learn more about the EquuSound earplugs, you can find their website linked in the show notes. As always, if there are balloon killers you would like to hear interviewed, please email me on balloonkillers@gmail.com. That's balloonkillers, all one word, @gmail.com.